Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Emre, I'm a concept artist working for the video game industry. I am here to teach you guys or learn from you guys about the design processes and world building, and we will be covering a lot more stuff in the future. This week we will be working on further on the Solarpunk world that we were building in the past weeks. Since the last week I was working on the environment a little bit more, like fleshing it out a little bit. I'll go through that. I'll explain to you guys what I thought while I was designing some buildings, and from there we will take off to polishing the environments and doing initial concepts of the whole environments, and then from there we will start polishing the buildings, and then we will start putting things together. But I think it will be on a next week. So if you're interested, hop on board. I'm glad you guys are here. Please like and subscribe, put some comments, and I don't know what else, like hitting the bells as well. So let's go. So we have the whole environment over here. I put it into Blender, lit it up a little bit, put some atmosphere just so I will also be immersed with the environment while I'm working on it. There is some stuff that are kind of familiar to you guys because I worked on them last week in the video, but I also added more stuff into it throughout the week. I will be covering them a little bit today by giving you a bit more information about what I was thinking while I was designing those environments, and then from there we will take off. I'll first go with the ones that are familiar to you guys who actually revisited the videos after last week. I'll also put them over here somewhere. If you want to, you can also visit them, but I will just go over them like very quickly. So these are the volcanic environments constructions, which were basically designed by thinking about the overall overcast weather, and all those solar panels should be above the clouds, or it could be moved up and down according to the height of the clouds, so they will be exposed to the sun even further, so the energy could be calculated. Also, I was thinking about like having geothermal plants and lava cooling channels inside the environment. Those are going to be further built, but also there will be some clues of those ideas on the structures of the spires. The hillside environment that I actually worked on last week, this actually, while I was working on this, Blender crashed and I had to redo it again. There's stuff that I kept, but there are also some stuff that I changed, or like there's kind of missing. We will handle them throughout this week's video. Those are basically designed in order to help people live on the cliffside and hillside of the volcanic mountain. These structures basically hug the terrain, and they have solar glass, and they have solar skin cladding on them, so they can harvest the solar energy. But also there are wind turbines attached to the cliffs, so they can use a channeled wind to create energy. Going to the coastal environment, I was thinking about having tidal turbines over here, and also semi-submerged buildings with the hydrokinetic legs, which I will design them separate after this introduction. There's also aqua farming terraces and seaweed filters around the area, which is going to be quite useful for the inhabitants. We also have the plains. There will be a lot of like still some nomadic people living around here. I will add more of them. These are the tents and some makeshift like environmental like structures, and also there will be some garages and stuff for the cars. Of course there are some solar panels around here, like solar farms, but also I was thinking about like people could be living in communities like this and larger structures, and there's also going to be like quite basic wind turbine structures, and also there are some vertical farms as well to increase the surface area of cultivation and gardening. Next up is the canyon environment, which I actually enjoyed a lot while I was working. This is basically mostly getting the advantage of the wind that is being channeled inside the canyon itself. So there is wind turbines attached into the carved rocks, and it's basically using the winds just coming through the rocks around here and getting the best out of it. All the buildings are being built inside the rocks. I have inspired by the cliff dwellers, or like mountain dwellers, and the ones that are in the old antique ages that actually carved their way inside mountains and stuff. But the buildings over here are much more like modern looking, futuristic looking, I would say. There's a lot more to add over here. I was thinking about like adding more like even smaller size, like micro turbines mounted on the cliff sides and stuff, which we will cover them probably this week or next week, you'll see. So this was about it from this week, and from here I will take screenshots, get some pre-renders, and then bash in some textures and stuff, and I will do some photo bashing as well, and then yeah, we will move on to the next stage, and then I will see you on the next part of the video. Alright, so here we are. I am basically just painting over the render that I just got from Blender. It's around like 5K-ish resolution. What I want to do right now is to just fill up the areas, because the only way that I could do in Blender would be to just extend it and put the textures here and there, but it will be too much work and it will be like too much performance intensive work. So I decided to basically just put it into Photoshop and just slap in some textures and stuff, and then move on from there. I just want to trick myself actually to have something going on outside the focal area, which is the biomes that I designed and their focal areas. Outside of that should not be distracting, but also on the other hand it should give us this feeling that the map has a lot more to give us outside those biomes that we have actually designed and in our focal area. Since we already have a very decent like image of the landscape, I basically just use the what's it called, the mixer brush, to copy and paste some of the textures there and basically paint over just to match the colors. And if you squint, it should work, and if you start squinting less and less, the painting will start giving away. But there's something that you should balance as you go in the painting process. Like some projects might be way too like tight in terms of deadline, so you should somehow balance it yourself you can give less detail if you have less time to deliver and just focus on the main focal areas. But if you still have like a lot of time, go ahead, you can even like sculpt those areas. But for this case, I decided to just figure out most of the stuff in Photoshop, because like we're going to revisit the biomes in specific as we go further in our design. So right now what I want to have is to figure out how the whole environment might feel like, which is a Solarpunk world that we are going to race our cars and or customize stuff or interact with nature and stuff, which is basically an open world game actually. Here I am adding some more detail as the map goes further away from us, and like turning off and on some of the layers just to feel how further I pushed the environment, or if there's anything that I actually missed or painted over by mistake. I'm also trying to balance the colors and amount of detail, because I don't want us to get distracted by the stuff that is outside the focal area. And from here you can take this, and by using the color choices that you have done, you can slap in some screenshots or like images that you want to photo bash in, so that things might look a little more like polished or fitting with each other, which is basically what we're going to do in a minute, I guess. Right now we are watching this video in 300%. It's like 3 times sped up. I didn't want to take all your time because the whole process took me around like 4 hours. I mean the Photoshop stage. So I had to speed things up a little bit, and then we will have like 2 parts. But don't worry, I will release the second part just almost after this. Maybe there will be like 2 days in difference. I'm zooming in and out a lot just to see how things actually feel like. I fired up the Google Earth because it has obviously has the most detailed landscapes, except for the, I think there's some websites that have higher resolution landscape images, like satellite images, but Google Earth was the most approachable for me. You can also download the desktop app. I wonder if it's still available, but I still had it, I think, that I downloaded like years ago. That you can also export some images from a landscape that you are looking for. You can see here that I was searching for a specific landscape that's actually matching with what I'm looking for, and also think how the landscape can actually continue after our main area, main play area, let's say. I'm bringing in some of the elements, but also I'm not really pushing for it too much. Just to get some clue, you know? It's like I'm not really being too precious about it. In general, I'm not being way too precious about this render because it's mainly there for me to feel how things look like. So it can become way too sketchy or like too much photo bashed. So I'm just trying to make things feel nice in the large scale, like basically zoomed out But once you zoom in, things might just fall apart, but still it can give you this cues about how the environment might feel like if you approach it closer in the game, or how dense the environments might be like, because like some buildings over here, like they're way too less. Doesn't feel like there is a lot of inhabitants living. Yeah, I put this on, but I think I didn't like it that much. Then I searched for yet another image that could be more fitting for the landscape elements. I think we are in Iceland over here, which is the best place to get some decent landscape elements, because they have almost everything there. And there's a lot of like volcanic rocks, volcanic elements there. I'm matching the colors right now. I'm using color balance, but you can use hue saturation or curves are the best for this. You will have more control on the midtones and shadows. The lines weren't really matching first image that I put, so I basically used this, and like I searched for volcanic mountain, so I can grab the sediments around the mountain itself that can merge with a flat landscape around it. Also, that part was looking way too sketchy, so I also searched for something similar in the same area, just to photobash it in as well. I'm using a lot of like painterly brushes because I want to have sort of a consistency in the style that I'm looking for. It's like semi-painterly, and it's something that I'm looking for. So yeah, while I'm painting over, I'm basically using mostly the painterly brushes. I don't mind. Realism wasn't really stuff. It wasn't really my focus in this. I like the shapes in this one. I think it also gives us mysterious vibes. Maybe there are some, I don't know, some agricultural areas there that are reserved for this purpose. Who knows? We don't have to explain everything anyways. Like, we can, when asked, we might be able to explain stuff, but we don't have to explain everything without being asked. I wasn't still like happy about how this biome was framed, so I'm kind of trying to dissipate the color around, or like merge them together, so it has this like repetition and then like sort of nice framing around settlements. And there's also a lot of like detail over there, so I'm just painting them over, basically flattening the details a little bit. Afterwards I will probably put some clouds to just close them a little bit. now it's almost the time that I'm diving into the settlements. I decided to put in some clouds already because I want to feel the environment that I'm in at first and then show the audience. Otherwise I will not be able to like make people believe that there is such environment. So I should believe in first. So I'm trying to set the grounds for me as much as possible in the first stage so that I will be more immersed about what I'm actually doing. I'm doing a lot of like additions and subtractions on the lines, on the masses that I add on a painting. This called as a painting with painted blotches or like masses that I paint in, and then subtract the parts so it can look a little bit more interesting in terms of a shape language that applies to the clouds that I'm putting here right now. Like the composition should be somehow at least like interesting to see, and I'm breaking it a little bit with using the smudge. If you squint still, I think the clouds are way too bright. I think it's kind of distracting us from the image itself, and that's something I will balance out eventually. I'm currently just erasing some parts and like maybe adding some darker blues and cyans, maybe just to balance it. Either it has to properly frame everything and bright, or it has to be somehow dark and somehow merged with the scenery. Yeah, I think this is working better right now. So I just disabled it a little bit, because I know that it's there. I know it's out of the way. I think it's looking nice, so I can now start working on the settlements. I had to turn it off because there's like stuff going on under the clouds, so I just didn't want the paint over to be influenced by the cloud. Like I mentioned before, the settlements were looking that populated. What I'm aiming for here is to just populate the environment a little bit. Perhaps we will break the environment into pieces now, like after this, and think about what sort of assets each settlement might need, and then we can plan our way from ahead, just to have like an oversight about how many assets and how much time they will take, and then we will start building them. And then after we make those, like let's consider like 2 large buildings, 2 like smaller buildings, and like 5 smaller assets, and then we will grab them all together, create some compositions, and then start scattering them around the area according to this landscape that we have. So it will make our life easier, you know, if we have such image in our wall somewhere here while we are designing the assets and start populating the environments, rather than just putting on the plant file and just thinking like, maybe I can put one building there and just start like squishing stuff in, and like things will become like way too tedious and it will take too long. Right now it's just, this thing is 4 hours. Let's also consider the landscape as, I don't know, 2 hours maybe. I was an amateur while I was doing that. It was my first landscape. Let's call like everything a day of work. And this can go to the 3D artist because you already have the base assets. Like if we run out of time, there's already like a 3D model that they can reference. If we didn't have that, if we didn't have this, the 3D artist would only have like highly detailed assets, because we will be using that 4 hours of time on detailing the assets, but they wouldn't have such information about how the settlements will look like in the end, like the whole how the environment's populated. So there will be sort of a trade-off, so we have to somehow balance it out. So I think this is like a important stage of the design. You just have to get yourself away from 3D modeling a little bit, think about the whole bigger picture, and then start diving in further. That's what we are also doing in this picture as well. Like we have focused on the big image, and then we start diving into the biomes and settlements, and like start thinking about like where can be some roads, and how the roads can frame the environment, how people will be living in there, what sort of elements they can have, how we can somehow connect like those settlements or those populations together, so they won't look way too detached. Like thinking about such things while we are in 3D will be too much work. It will take too long, and it's very easy to just fall into that rabbit hole of over modeling stuff. Especially for our case, because we are there to deliver stuff as quick as possible and as efficient as possible. So efficiency in this case is the key. I showed you guys in the first part of this video that I have also slapped in some solar panels into the environment. I took them out because it will take us too long to clean them up and just lay down the photobashed elements. So I'm basically replicating a similar feeling by slapping in the image that I got from the internet and just laying them over the environment itself. So this environment had a lot of solar panels, like solar panel farms, larger community houses, like buildings, basically like those disc-shaped buildings are basically like huge communities living together. But also there will be some nomads as well, which we will start working on in a bit. I didn't want the environment to just finish from that building over there, just about the solar panels that I just added. So I decided to just somehow dissipate the environment slight bit around without having any hard cuts. But also I want to have, well, I always imagine myself playing the game when I'm designing something for it, even if there is no prototype or anything. So imagine like you're driving your car around, and instead of like directly going into a vast emptiness, I would like to have a bit of a gradient and some landscape and a new city just coming afterwards. So there will be like a little bit of a transition in between. So that's what I'm aiming for while I'm putting all these environments together. There will be either roads or like some like some areas that people can were populating ever so slightly, or will be using for, I don't know, agricultural purposes or some energy produce purposes. I'm adding some foliage because I think the environment was kind of lacking foliage. I thought this could have a bit of their own flora inside. Like I said, I'm not really being like too precious about the realism, so I'm just painting by using brushes, just picking up some colors or anything like that. I sometimes use the mixer brush, I think you can see right now, and just grab these parts that I find could be useful for painting that element, so I'll just use that as a sample for painting over, so it will look consistent in terms of the texture quality and the visuals. But like I said, I'm not really spending hours on trying to find the right image and just laying it over and just cleaning it up and stuff. And it's mostly for close-ups that will be important. I'm adding a little bit of a complexity because it was only some discs like scattered around, so it's not the way that people live. It's not like that. We are not so organized. We just build houses wherever we find. At least it was that way. So there should be somehow like organic feeling about how the environments were actually settled. I'm adding some shadows just so I can separate the buildings from the landscape and group the values a little bit. Without grouping the values, things become way too scattered. So one way to somehow manage that is to just squint and see like how readable it is and start like painting in or painting out some values. Make some parts darker, make some parts that actually you want to be seen as more in contrast. Adding a bit of a foliage as well. Also, I thought that this part was kind of like too detached while I was painting over some while I was photo bashing, so I decided to paint a little bit, some rocks and stuff. Also, everything just directs your eye. Like whatever line that you draw, everything directs your eye, and an image is a part of composition. So you should be somehow mindful about the lines that you're adding into your pieces. Also, like everything's intentional, and you shouldn't forget about that. Like those rocks that I added basically are there for us to just frame the settlement though, but just direct our eye there. adding a bit more foliage. This part in particular took me a while because it was the first place that I was painting, but all the others I just put myself a time limit. It's like 30 minutes to 45 minutes each. Next place also kind of took me longer, so bear with me. These are going to be some tents or like some nomadic buildings or like makeshift settlements. They're going to be around this little city that we have there, little town maybe. But as you can see, I'm adding some lines, but all those lines are actually just directing us to the specific areas without getting our attention out of the frame. These should look organic, but also it should look planned. That's the balance that you should keep in mind while you're painting, like drawing something or designing something. It's a part of Gestalt. I'm adding some more foliage around the roads and the streets just to break it up a bit and make it look a bit more organic, because it's not always like a straight road and there must be something going around it. So when you look at it from perspective, you should see the tree, but just under the tree there should be the road as well. So there's some breaks. There must be some breaks. The cost of the environment was kind of problematic for me. I still find it a bit difficult to work on. And you will probably see it right now, how much I struggled. In the end, I somehow found a way. Until I got there, it was kind of painful for me to figure out how to design the settlements. And I didn't model much beforehand. Everything was way too blocky, and there were some weird decisions that I have done there while I was modeling. So I had to fix some of them. This is an AI generated image that I found online, just to have something that looks like parametric. I want to have this coral reef kind of feeling on the settlements themselves. It's not like they are necessarily under the water, but even on the outside of the water, it should give this feeling that those people who are living in those areas are also like into the aesthetics of water. It kind of brings some consistency in the design. Also, it's a part of storytelling as well. I was thinking material wise they can be more like 3D printed. I actually have an exact reference somewhere here on the mirror board on the left. As you see, there's a 3D printed concrete just above the AI generated image. That was the starting point for me to start searching for such shape. So I started painting over there. I'm still trying to figure out how the walkways are integrated into the land, or how they're integrated to the buildings. And I still find them way too undefined. Like I should actually think about that in the next stage while I'm modeling stuff. You can also see that I'm way too scattered about what I'm going to do there, so I had to somehow look for the references or somehow direct my attention to some specific areas after. Like I'm trying to fix everything all at once, but it doesn't really work that way. So I think what I will do differently in this would be to focus on this like main building in the middle and start like expanding from there while I'm painting and some architectural details. I also want to use this as a like artificial coral reef. This that goes under the water, maybe. And this had a lot of like small, minuscule details. I thought I could use it for the coast. So I reused the reference image that I found for the buildings for this. It's like concrete elements just going inside each other, and just it's basically doing this like wavy shape so that fishes could use that area for building their houses and stuff. I want to continue the shape there, just so I'm just painting over some concave areas. And what this area would also need are some ships. That's something I might design eventually, but I'll be focusing on cars for now. That piece of concrete ground over there, I'm still skeptical about it. I thought it will be like an overlook for the environment. It's like elevation difference. It's like you come out from the canyons and you see this area, you go there and you see the whole land, but just underneath there's like a whole city. That was the main goal. But it looks kind of weird in this angle. So adding more supports to the walkways. Connecting some of the fish farms as well. Also, some details were kind of missing on the turbines, so I'm adding them. I was thinking that there could be some orange indicator on them on the main hub, so I added that as well. Also, the fish farms require a bit more love in their design, so I decided to add some complexity there by just adding some I know some borders around them. There can be some like guardrails and stuff. Also, those turbines could have some overhangs or some platforms on them, just so they would allow people to get on and do some cleanups or like maintenance and stuff. Yeah, I think the main area over there is way too hard to understand. That's something that I'm going to fix soon. At least try to fix. And that's the problem, like I had to take a break from this and come back just so I could see my mistakes there. Right now I'm focusing on the stuff that are not necessary. The necessary thing is to make the buildings and stuff much more clear for me to understand, just so I will know where to focus on next. Kind of feels like I was running out of my problems while I was working on this. I'm adding some staircases going up. They won't be like too pretty looking stairs, but imagine like a rural area in southern Italy, maybe. You can imagine it that way in terms of how the environment might feel like. So I'm connecting this land to the hillside. See, I'm still running away from my problems. Yeah, we're now back into fixing stuff. I just realized that the building was kind of hard to understand over there, so I'm just making it pop a little bit while adding some shadows behind and the surrounding area. Shadows do not really need to look that accurate on this stage. I mean, it should be 90% accurate, but there is still some leeway to make things a bit, like pop a little bit, so that you can just make them look pretty. So you can actually just paint on some shadows and stuff. Yeah, I'm zooming out again just to see how it feels like. And I think it's getting somewhere. Like there's at least some distinction between what's going on above and below, so because of the shadow casted by the I think it's not an overhang, it's like that concrete thingy over there. Now I'm looking for like an Asian fishing town. I already had that in the references on the mirror board, but it was way too like up close, and perspective wasn't matching, so I'm looking for some aerial shots. I was thinking like maybe I could scatter them around just to give this like organic feeling. Also grabbing some buildings and just putting them around. Yeah, in the end I decided to make this place larger. At first it wasn't actually like a main building there. I don't think that there will be main building idea, but then I decided to just have at least a focal area on the environment, so it will become a little bit more readable. All those lines that I'm currently adding are just to close the composition on the right upper right corner. I found an image that is kind of suitable for what I need, so I'm just putting them in. I'm just painting it over just to have some indicator that there are housing there. Because painting them over, just painting it directly onto the image actually takes way too long. So also, like, although you barely can see anything from this photobash, I still think that it kind of gives you this feeling that there's something realistic in there, so it kind of like matches with the environment as well. Sometimes I use screen because I just want to have the brightest points of the buildings like pop up a little bit, instead of trying to deal with the color management and stuff. I just want to show that okay, there are some squares of buildings that they're just scattered around. Because like I said, it should first work on a large scale, on a big picture, and then if you have time, you can dive in. Yeah, like I said, I wasn't really happy about that concrete area there, so I'm just adding some buildings. It's like right now it looks as if buildings are built there and the hill just continues downhill. It's like Monaco, you know. It's like there's a lot of hilly area, but there's buildings everywhere. It's like it's pretty much not really planned. Yeah, this is how it actually looks like right now. I think we are nearing the end. Yeah, adding some color dodge here and there to amplify the buildings, or key buildings. Oh, yeah. Alright, this is actually it for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was like almost like a 1 hour session. And there will be also a second part of this. I will probably release it in the next 2 days. Till then, I wish you guys a great week. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. and take care, and I will see you on the next video. Bye!